Good morning, and to our friends joining us abroad, good evening. Welcome to Merage Talks. Today from Eagle Point Funding, Matthew Cloud joins us to touch on the subject, technology, innovation, and access to USA federal grants and contracts. Matthew, thank you so much for joining us today. Let's get started.
Thanks, Christy. I appreciate it. Again, my name is Matthew Cloud, Director of Business Development here at Eagle Point Funding. Today, we are going to talk about federal funding for deep technology companies. Now, you'll notice that every screen will have, every slide will have a QR code on it. If you just open up your smartphone, the camera on your smartphone, you can hold it up to that QR code. It'll take you directly to my calendar. If at any time you say, hey, I want to get to know this guy a little bit better. I want to get to know Eagle Point Funding a little bit better. I want to get to know federal funding a little bit better. You can book a call with me directly from that QR code. So let's get started. Every year, the US federal government pumps literally billions of dollars into stimulating research and development. Now, what we focus on here, what most of us are interested in, is this area highlighted in red, which is the annual $30 to $80 billion that's allocated towards the private sector. Now, this is completely non-dilutive funding. So what does that mean? This is not a loan. This is not you don't have to give up any equity in exchange for it. Heck, the government doesn't even want any rights to the IP that you devise under the guise of one of these grants. All that is yours remains yours. What this is additional stimulus money to help you develop and research the technology that you're already developing and researching anyway. Now, obviously, you can contrast this with dilutive funding, which is 100% necessary, especially in the deep tech world. But this is not what we're talking about today. Now, there are four main industries in which the US federal government invests. You have defense, cyber, energy, and advanced materials. Now, as you're scanning through these industries, if you don't happen to see yours under one of those four categories, you probably fall under the other topics category. Now, the other topics category is also invested in. And the bottom line is that the US federal government is investing in deep, innovative technology that is pushing the boundaries of technological science and innovation in the world. Here are just a few examples, and there are many, many, many more, of companies that got early starts with non-dilutive federal grants. I mean, just think about it. You could be the next Qualcomm or Symantec. How cool would that be? Now, the Milken Institute actually did a study on the return that startups were able to leverage in terms of public investment to private investment. And what they determined is that over an 8-year period, after receiving public funds, they were able to leverage those funds for over an 800% return on investment from private sources. So this is a little bit confusing when I explain it, but to really reduce it down, what it means is that you become the creme de la creme once you are invested in by the US federal government. Not only do customers want to buy from you, but investors want to offer you more money in exchange for less equity. So remember, going back to those dilutive versus non-dilutive funding, well, the dilutive guys love to see non-dilutive investments. So why does the US government do this? Well, we say that there are two reasons. Now, the first is the rise of business to government relationships. So in, I believe it was 1982, the US government instituted what's called the SBIR program, the Small Business Innovation Research Fund. Now, I'm sure if you guys are in the tech industry in the United States, most of you have heard of SBIRs or SBIRs. But really, the reason that they created this program was to increase the number of vetted federal contractors that the US federal government is working with. What they found is that large-scale industry partners like your Lockheed Martin, your Raytheon, your Boeing, your Northrop Grumman, your Microsoft and Intel and Cobham and Honeywell and your large-scale federal contractors are really fantastic. These guys are amazing. The world would not be what it is without them. But when it comes to innovating, when it comes to creating new technologies, these guys, it's a lot more costly for them to do that. It's a lot more, they're a lot slower to respond. They're not as motivated as small business. And so what did they do? Well, when the government needed something, they would reach out to your Raytheon, and Raytheon would go and find a small business that is innovating and producing the technology that is needed. And then they would either acquire the company or become a customer themselves or bring the company on as a subprime on one of their larger multi-hundred-million-dollar proposals, and thereby acting as a middleman. Well, that reduced the access that the federal government had directly with this new innovative tech company. And so the government realized this, and they said, well, why are we essentially paying a middleman when we could be increasing our options and increasing what we call our deal flow, or the number of vetted federal contractors that we work with? And so they created this program in an effort to engage small business. In fact, when you go through the SBIR program, and I'll discuss it later in the presentation, when you go through the SBIR program, you essentially check off all of the boxes on what's called the Defense Procurement Act, thereby enabling you to sell directly to the federal government. Now, the only other way to really do this is to get on what's called the GSA schedule, the General Services Administration schedule. But once you're in the GSA catalog, those agencies don't even necessarily know that you exist or know what you do or know how good you are. But when you go through the SBIR program, when the government essentially pays you to become vetted, they gain an intimate knowledge of your capabilities, and they know how amazing you are. So essentially, that's what this is, the rise of B2G. So how does it work? Well, here's the typical, very high-level overview process. So it starts off with a federal agency looking for identifying a challenge that they have within their agency, and then posting an opportunity for funding. They want to see what comes back. They want to see what you guys have to offer, and so they evaluate those responses and then decide to make an investment on a particular research area. Then they evaluate your performance throughout the grant period, and then at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. It's about you gaining a tier 1 client out of the U.S. federal government. So we say that the second reason is really seed money for the private sector. We say that there are both altruistic and capitalistic motives at play, but let's be honest here, people. We're talking about the U.S. federal government. Even the altruistic motives have a capitalistic undertone to them. So that being said, I like to focus on the last point on this slide. For every $1 that the U.S. federal government invests in R&D for the private industry, they get back $2.30. That's a 230% return on their investment. How does that come to fruition? Well, one word: taxes. Taxes on the materials and salaries and facilities and other services that you are going to procure under the guise of one of these grants with the money that they're going to give you, but also taxes on the finished products that they're going to enable you to sell by stimulating you to create them. Taxes on the employees that you're going to hire as a result of the exponential growth that their investment is going to help you to achieve. Taxes. So there are 3 different types of mechanism that we're going to discuss today. So the first is phased funding, which comes through the SBIR STTR program. Now, I touched on this program earlier. I explained to you why it exists, but I'm going to explain to you how it exists in the coming slides. And then there's continuous funding. which is represented through the Broad Agency Announcement, or BAA. And then there's also the OTA, or the Other Transaction Authority Announcement, which is a direct-to-procurement opportunity. Now, this pie chart really is just here because, like I said, most of you have probably heard of SBIRs, but this pie chart is here to represent the minute slice of the pie that SBIRs and SIDRs actually make up. Most of the money comes through BAAs and OTAs. And so, this is a very common misconception that if we want to go for federal funding, we are stuck going for SBIRs, and it's really not the case. Again, if you want to hear more about this, I'm so happy to discuss with you privately. So let's start with breaking down the SBIR program. So SBIR is a three-phase program. In order to qualify for the SBIR program, you need to meet three main criteria down in the left-hand corner. The first is that you have less than 500 employees. The second is that you have a base of operations in the United States and have the availability to do the research and development under the guise of one of these grants in the United States. Now, all of your R&D doesn't have to be done in the US now, but if you win an SBIR, that you can actually move it just for the grant into the States. Then finally, you need to have more than 50% ownership of the company held by US resident individuals or other small businesses. So that's right. So how it works is SBIR is a three-phase process. There are 11 agencies that participate in the program, and how it operates is it makes incremental bets based on how comfortable the agency to which you are applying has actually become regarding your technology. So, and again, this is not for you to create something that's brand new, rather for you to take your core capabilities and then translate them into federal use cases. Now, the federal use cases are oftentimes specific, but your core capabilities are still there. So that being said, you apply first, you write a phase one proposal. Now, phase one will award you up to $256,000 for a 6-month feasibility study on how your core technology can satisfy the particular use case to which you're applying. Once you have finished your feasibility study, again, there's no real work, actual development happening in that phase one. This is a POC. Now, once you have finished that proof of concept, you are invited to come back and apply for a phase two award. Phase twos are typically 24 months in terms of performance period, and the funding amounts are between $400,000 up to $1.7 million in order for you to take that POC and turn it into a functional prototype. Then you enter into what the Department of Defense loves to call the Innovation Valley of Death, that area in between a functional prototype and commercialization and scaling the technology in order to fit the customer need. So this is why there are all sorts of amazing commercialization assistance programs offered by just about, I think 10 out of the 11 SBIR agencies offer additional federal funds to companies who are looking to scale in order to fit the consumer demand. I mean, the Air Force has two programs, one called TACFI, one called StratFi. They offer up to $15 million extra dollars. NASA has a program they call CCRP, the Civilian Commercialization Readiness Program. They offer up to $6 million. National Science Foundation has their I-Corps program. NIST has one, NOAA has one, DHS has one. So anyway, I digress. So then you move, those are typically phase 2Bs, sometimes called sequential phase 2s, sometimes called supplemental funding initiatives. And then you are enabled to move on to phase 3, which is where we all want to be. Phase 3s are the procurement contracts. This is when you are entering into customer relationships with typically the federal agency or federal agencies through which you are funded. Now, let's move on to continuous funding, broad agency announcements. So broad agency announcements differ in many ways from the SBIR TTR program. So BAAs are multidisciplinary grants that are typically given out for both fundamental or applied research, and they're given out over a period typically of 18 months to 60 months, so 18 months to 5 years. There are a few caveats here. So in terms of eligibility, eligibilities vary based on solicitation. Pretty much every agency from the Department of State to Health and Human Services to, I think I mentioned the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration or the EPA or USDA, they all have broad agency announcements. The Federal Highway Administration has broad agency announcements. The Federal Railway Administration has broad agency announcements. And these are typically containing very broad areas of interest in which you will be able to propose your research, what you would like to work on, and gauge the interest from federal agencies in terms of funding you. Now, like I mentioned, that eligibilities are typically a lot more loosely restricted. In addition, the award ceilings, there aren't set award limits like there are in SBIRs. The typical award ceilings are the total award, the total amount, the total budget that they have for the actual solicitation. Excuse me. So when it comes to a BAA, typically they'll say, okay, we have $200 million per year to allocate towards this 5-year BAA. And they will, and then, so when that $200 million runs out each year, then they have no more money to give for that BAA. But it'll be on a first come, first served basis in terms of the research that's proposed and whether or not that's worth funding. Now, we'll move on to OTAs. So these are direct procurement opportunities, typically for later stage technologies. Now, I put this flow chart here. We're actually, after this slide, we're going to, a little bit later, we'll dig into an example of each of these, just to give you an idea of what these solicitations look like. But I had actually pulled this flow chart from an OTA that's offered from the Army Corps of Engineers, which pretty much explains the process. So OTA, this is for later stage technologies that you say, okay, I have a solution for the US Army that can be used in its current form to do X, Y, and Z. So you submit a preliminary white paper outlining an abstract of what your technology does and why you think the Army can use it. They'll come back to you, they'll evaluate, and they'll come back to you and they'll give you one of really 4 answers. The first will be, nah, sorry, we're not interested. And the second will be, you know what, we could be interested, but well, we don't have any funds to allocate to this. But let's be honest, people, that means they're not interested. and then the third and fourth option are these here. I know there are 3 here, but really this one and this one are coupled together. So if they can say, yes, we love this, and we would love to invite you to pitch to our stakeholders and to demonstrate the technology in order for us to determine the appropriate fit. And then the fourth answer would also be, yes, we love this technology, but we would like you to build out X, Y, and Z feature into it. And we want you to come back with what's called an RFPP, a request for prototyping proposal, in which you will outline the scope of R&D that is involved to build out these features that we need and the budget items associated with them. And we will provide non-dilutive investment to help stimulate that development with a B2G contract attached to the end of your prototyping. So what can you use this money for, right? I talked to you about these programs. I got you all excited about millions of dollars. What can you use it for? Here are 7 things. You'll notice that at the bottom, there is an unallocated expenses portion, which is typically 5 to 6%. There are a few programs that are up to 7%. This is also sometimes categorized as profit. But you also notice that vacation trips to Hawaii aren't on this list. Well, that's because it probably doesn't have anything to do with the R&D. Anything that has to do with research and development on the technology that you are proposing, that is what you can use the funds for. Most of the time, a lot of the money ends up going to salaries. What does it take to win? Another great question. Well, it takes a lot to win, but I've whittled it down to 3 things. First, you need to have innovative tech. You can call this deep tech, revolutionary tech, pioneer tech, whatever you want to call it. You have to be, like I said in the beginning, pushing those boundaries, pushing the boundaries of technological science and innovation in the world, or dramatically improving the efficiency of a certain process. If you're taking a 5-step process and bringing it down to 2 steps, that's great. If you're optimizing the cost associated with a very expensive process or method, really great too. If you're decreasing the weight or the size, I mean, there's so much that is being funded. I highly suggest you book a call if you think that you have an applicable technology. Now, 2, you have to have a strong R&D team. I get this question all the time. Matt, do I need PhDs on staff? And the answer is no. Does it help? Sure. But do you need them? No. What do you need? You need people who have credibility in this field, in this industry. If you have 10 people in your R&D department and 9 of them have been with the company for 3 months, that's probably not going to have a good shot at being funded. The government wants as many safeguards as possible. They want to do their vetting ahead of time. You're going to be required with just about every one of these proposals to include the CVs of the R&D staff. 3, you have to have commercially viable tech. So we call this dual use technology, meaning that you need to have both a public and a private use case. The federal, I don't know if you remember, but that last point on why the government is boosting small industry, they want tax revenue. How are they going to get, the government doesn't pay taxes. How are they going to get tax revenue? They're going to get tax revenue from you selling your products in the private sector. So they love to see technologies that have both a public and private use case. So now let's dive into an example of each of the types of funding. So this is the NSF SBIR. I chose this one, first of all, because it's active right now. Second of all, because it is very broad in nature in terms of what they're looking for. So the NSF is not an end user of technology. Rather, they call themselves America's Seed Fund. They are boosting small business and who are really pushing the boundaries of technology. They're interested in funding high risk technologies. So how it works with them, their phase 1 is up to $256,000 for a 6 to 12 month POC. And then their phase 2 is $1 million for up to a 24-month prototype. Then they offer commercialization assistance initiatives through their I-Corps program, which I believe is an extra $1 million supplement. It takes them on average 3 to 5 months to evaluate a proposal, and they will fund you typically on the 6th month. Their process differs a little bit from most other SBIRs in that they require a preliminary abstract or project pitch ahead of a full proposal. Now, we have our own methodology when it comes to NSF proposals. I'd be more than happy to discuss it with you. So here are the focus areas. And the focus areas look exactly like this on the solicitation. And each one of these has about anywhere from 3 to 5 subtopics. But there isn't a detailed description on each of the subtopics. Rather, if you are innovating in any of these sectors, this is something that the NSF is interested in funding. Now, let's talk about the Department of Homeland Security's S&T LRBAA. Now, oh, Matt, you said BAA. What's LRBAA? So LRBAA is a long-range broad agency announcement. The idea here is that they're looking for a 3 to 5 year R&D period. Now, they do also have an OT mechanism through their DHS S&T division, which is interested in taking these focus areas and really calling for specific technologies. I'm very happy to talk to you about that. That's called their SVIP program, the Silicon Valley Innovation Program. In the last round of the DHS S&T LRBAA, the awards ranged from $100,000 up to $70 million per award. Now, these are the 6 broad-based focus areas. Each of them have subtopics which are much more specific in what they're looking for. But yeah, I actually, and here's the process. I actually wanted to include this slide so that you can understand really how this BAA operates. So it begins with an industry engagement where you are submitting a preliminary abstract. It's up to 3 pages, and that just outlines the scope of work that you were planning to do. And then you will receive a response whether or not they would like to move you on to a phase 1, which is their virtual pitch. You will have 2 days. You will have 2 weeks to prepare your virtual pitch, and then you will give it over. And you have 21 days for evaluation after you give that pitch. After the 21 days, they will decide whether or not they would like you to submit a full proposal, which is a 40-page maximum written work, which you'll have 45 days to prepare, and will take another 21 days to evaluate. So then after those 21 days, you'll get a negotiation letter from the CEO, and they will make you an offer for funding. It will be at that point that you have the opportunity to talk to them about the specific budget aspects that are associated with that proposal, and then move forward right into your development. Now, let's discuss that ERDC works. So it's a lot of letters, I know. I'll break it down for you. ERDC is the Engineering Research and Development Corps of the Army. Works is what they call their rapid funding mechanism. BOTAA, you're just going to focus on the middle 3 letters there, the Other Transaction Authority. It stands for Broad Other Transaction Authority Announcement. Now, this is a fantastic program that is kind of a hidden treasure. It's not very well publicized, and it actually opened for the first time ever last year. It is an ongoing BOTAA, meaning that they are looking for technologies that are ready for procurement or very close to with nominal prototyping. Again, the focus areas here, I chose solicitations that have broad focus areas just to illustrate to you. Another very common misconception is that federal funding is oftentimes custom tailored towards specific companies, and they already know which companies they're going to fund before they even post the solicitation. Well, I just showed you 3 solicitations out there that are extremely broad reaching and with no specific company in mind. You can see by what they're looking for. They're looking for general technologies that are innovative and can offer solutions to their agencies. This one, their preliminary white paper, I believe, is up to 5 pages. They give you, on average, we've been seeing about 2 months before they come back to you and say either yes, we're very interested and we would like you to submit a prototyping proposal, or yes, we're interested and we want you to pitch, or no, we're not interested at all. So now I'll talk to you a little bit about Eagle Point funding. I'll tell you what we do, and then I'll break for questions. So Eagle Point funding, so what do? We know the system backwards and forwards, inside and out. We're constantly in touch with the various program managers and program officers within these agencies. We will do the initial outreach on your behalf in order to determine the proper tech fit. We will act as your supreme project management team in spearheading the proposal writing process. We don't work with clients on just one proposal because we believe in a multi-submission strategy. Our contract with our clients is over an initial 9-month term, and over those 9 months, we are submitting proposal after proposal in succession. We prefer to take on as much of the writing as we possibly can ourselves. Now, oftentimes, we don't take on most of the writing until the second or third proposal because it takes us some time to be properly onboarded to your technology. But once we are, you can virtually set us and forget us. We do require weekly calls with our clients in order to check in about materials requests that we need from the company in order to build submissions, present to you potential opportunities that have recently come up, and discuss with you projects that are ongoing. Now, our initial contract period is 9 months. I'll tell you 9 months is not enough time to be properly ensconced in federal funding. Our clients end up sticking with us for years. And that is because if you start with us and you have never won a federal grant in your life, those first 9 months, we're going to win 1 to 3, but those are going to be sometimes SBIR phase 1, sometimes some BAAs. But the idea is that what we're going to do with those 1 to 3 is we're going to get your foot in the door. The second 9 months, we really start to take off. Now we're winning in the millions. The third 9 months, we're going for supplemental funding initiatives. We're going for $20 million BAAs. You are well entrenched in federal funding, and we are taking you to the moon. Now, a little bit about us. So our group started in 1999 here in Israel. We very quickly recognized that the Israeli Innovation Authority did not have nearly as much money as the United States federal government to pump into small business tech companies or to tech companies in general. And so in 2001, we actually made our entry into the US market by helping a couple of companies who had technology to combat chemical warfare initiatives to achieve a few $1 million in federal funding to combat anthrax. Now, since then, we have just grown immensely. We have an arm of our company that does EU funding, Argentum. We actually have an arm of our company that does, it's not listed here, that does life sciences only in the US. We have our Makor company, our source company, which is Machshava Chofshit, which is our Israeli arm. And then we also have our Deep Tech Showcase, which I'm going to present to you in a couple. So what you get when you partner with us, I pretty much went through what we do. We finish within 3 days of signing an agreement with us, we have a kickoff call. We'll start working on our first proposal as soon as possible. We'll help you with all the necessary registrations. We will hold your hand through the entire process and and optimize your time spent on these things so that we are taking on the heaviest part of this burden, and really leaving you to be able to pursue your commercial roadmap and your other R&D goals. Now, on average, we complete a submission every 3 to 5 weeks. I'll tell you, our sweet spot with our clients is somewhere between 6 and 9 submissions over each 9-month period, but there are no maximum number of submissions. Now, here's our team. As you can see, we've got a beautiful team, and we're growing all the time. These guys on the top are our team leaders. This is Iran, the head of our grants department. When you work with us, you get one of these lovely individuals to be your consultant. However, the team leaders are always involved. They're on calls once a month with you. These guys you'll be on calls once a week with, and they'll be your main point of contact. Now let's talk very briefly about Deep Tech Showcase. So Deep Tech Showcase, our mission is to advance innovative small businesses and their solutions together with investors, corporates, and government agencies. How do we do this? We have showcase events where we give guided introductions to corporations, government stakeholders, VCs. We do studios where we do content design. And then we also have a business strategies division that through Deep Tech Showcase, which will perform an entire market analysis on your technology, identifying potential use cases and customers, and then helping you to strategize on how to reach out to these people. We will do a lot of the reaching out for you, but we're going to help you with how to talk to these guys. So here's, in a nutshell, what Deep Tech Showcase does. Every month we have guided pitch events. Every month we have guided pitch events. We help you, like I said, we help you with content creation, whether that's putting together one-pagers or pitch decks, or any other content that's targeted towards your customers that we help you to identify. And then we also facilitate guided introductions between our innovators and our stakeholders. Now, this is not exclusively for US companies whatsoever. We actually love our foreign companies who join the showcase. We actually have foreign stakeholders as well who join our showcase. Now, here's just a list of our pitch events that are typically broken up by industry. As you can see, we just had our energy event. I'm happy to send you the recording. You can shoot me an email. I'll put my email on the next slide. Our upcoming event is on autonomous systems, and we're very excited about it. We actually have a YouTube channel. You can YouTube Eagle Point Funding, find it, and find all of our content there. So that's what I have for you today. Here is my email address at the bottom of this page. The QR code is still there. If you would like to book a call with me, you can hold your smartphone camera up to it, or you can just shoot me an email and I would be happy to help you there. Now, I'd love to open up the floor for some Q&A. I see Christy put her camera back on. I'll put mine back on too.
So you can ask the questions directly, or if you want to also submit questions to the chat board. Let's start Q&A now. Okay, we do have a question actually. If a company raises funds from BIRD, is it still possible to apply to the other programs you mentioned?
Yeah, Gali, thank you very much for the question. Yes, it is. Yes, you can definitely apply to. I mean, I don't know, Gali. I'm not sure if you're a U.S. company or an Israeli company, but if you're Israeli, then you can apply to the BAAs. If you're a U.S. company, you can apply to SBIRs or BAAs. And if you have actually a strategic partnership with, and you're an Israeli company and have a strategic partnership with a U.S. company, you can actually apply to some of these opportunities as a subcontractor on the, from your U.S. partner. So yeah, we actually have a lot of experience with Bird Foundation as well. We've won the Bird Foundation for our clients as well.
Thank you. I was wondering about that because I was also on the Israeli Innovation Center conversation, and they said that once you apply to Bird, then you cannot receive additional funds. That is why I asked the question. So good to know.
Sure. Yeah, you might not be able to receive additional funds from the Israeli Innovation Authority.
Yeah.
But but from U.S. federal grants, there's no restriction.
Good to know. Thanks.
Sure.
Do we have any additional questions?
I know it was pretty thorough.
You were absolutely.
Good. Well, I want to thank you all very much for coming. It was my great pleasure to be here. Thank you, Christy, for having me. I really appreciate it. And again, if you have any questions, I'm always available. You can, except on Shabbos, but you can always shoot me an email at matthew@eaglepointfunding.com, and I would be very happy to even just answer your questions.
Matthew, on behalf of Paul Merage and the Merage Institute, thank you so much for taking the time today to enlighten our Merage tribe. It was a wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.